There we go. Hi, I'm Lewis Weil. I'm presenting Algae Apocalypse tonight. As Amy mentioned, it was in the Nerd Nite book. And that's me. I'm Lewis. I've probably met some of y'all. I hope to meet all of you tonight. I'm a financial planner, and I'm here to talk about algae. Very related things. This picture will come back. It's a good story. I think, Amy, you might have actually taken this picture when we were in Marfa. That's its own story, and this talk and everything that I ever say can be 100 tangents. So I'm going to save that if we need a fun story at the end. That's a stromatolite in my hands, and that will come back. This is a talk that I gave when Nerd Nite Houston first launched years ago. And originally, I've never given it in Austin, despite giving it there, it being in the Nerd Nite book. This is the first time it's been spoken on stage in Austin, and I decided to leave the structure because originally, like, it was one of the first Nerd Nite Houstons, and I was like, kind of also doing a meta presentation about what is Nerd Nite and why should you care and why you should do it. And I decided to leave it for a variety of reasons. One of which is laziness, but the other is just to kind of highlight what it means to be a speaker, what it means to be at Nerd Nite, and why you should care. So this is Nerd Nite 171. I was boss of Nerd Nite from 2009 to 2018. I did 100 of them, and Mickey and Amy have been involved since then. I called them the new bosses for years, but now they've been doing it like their bosshood could probably legally drive a car by now. And importantly, that Nerd Nite Austin is unique in a bunch of ways. It is the third Nerd Nite to ever start after Boston and New York, and it is the longest contiguously running Nerd Nite in the world now. That definitely deserves applause, and all the fucking credit. Like, keeping it going through COVID, a lot of Nerd Nights fell off and came back. Nerd Nite Austin has never stopped. And yeah, 171 shows, hundreds and hundreds of talks. And it's weirdly, it's always been a very kind of punk show, and it's always been free. Most of the other Nerd Nights charge. It is part of most of the bosses make money off of this. We've never made money off of it. We do it because knowledge wants to be free and because it's fun, and all the more reason to ask you all to be like, get on that list, get up here and give presentations, and join. Amy and Mickey could use a hand. We've been at it since we were babies, and their new babies need to come help run the show, and there's space for it. And I decided to keep it so that you can see that your presentation doesn't have to be beautiful, it just has to be fun. People care more about how excited you are and how passionate you are, more so than whether you can maintain consistent capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. So, as I said, I was one of the first bosses. I did it for a very, very long time. And it started with me. People often ask, like, what's your favorite, what's the best or what's the worst talk? And both of them might have been me. Back in 2009, I gave a talk about shark sex, and this was before I was involved with the show, and I was like they asked me to do it, and I was sending messages like, how many shark dicks can I show? How much like shark vaginas can there be? Can I have an interpretive dance troupe, which I did. And they were like, this is either going to be the best thing or worst thing. And then I was I was new to Austin. I was having a little too much fun. I asked my friend, what are we drinking tonight? She said apple teenies. And I got kind of drunk. And I think I gave an okay talk, and I fell off the stage, and it went okay. Oh, yeah. So if that can happen, and then it goes okay, and here we are these years later, you can get up here and get through your thing that you're passionate about, even if it's algae, which I promise is what I'm here to talk about, and I promise it's actually interesting. So before I was a financial planner for the last decade, I was a molecular biologist. And the thing that I originally studied was an algae. I studied the molecules inside of the algae. I've long since left it, but I'm still very passionate about it. From there, I became a seaweed farmer. I ran a project called Austin Sea Veggies. I'm not in science in any capacity anymore, but I now volunteer with Ecology Action of Texas, the Circle Acres Nature Preserve on Montopolis, in order to stay engaged in science and ecology a little bit. And I am wearing the same outfit that I'm wearing in that photo because I thought I looked okay in it. And I really like the Lady Bird Johnson stuff on the back, about rattlesnakes in your yard. I'll gloss over this. You can also, this is in the Nerd Nite book, which you can get at the library. Yes, please applaud the library. It blows my mind that that my words, 2-3 pages of my words are on the shelf at the library, and you can go get them for free. That's how libraries work. You can all. I did check. There's a couple copies at Book People, at least, if anyone wants to go get it. And it's full of wonderful stuff. I actually read the book to my wife while she was in labor to distract her. And you have to be very careful about which ones you pick while you're doing that. So, what is algae? We've probably all encountered it. We've probably all seen it. Most of us have never thought about it. Most of the time we think about it as pond scum. But when we say algae, generally what we're referring to is non-vascular plants. Things, living things that do oxygen-producing photosynthesis. So this is just like what you might see on the top of a stagnant pond. After a rain, when the cement is a little green, what you're seeing is algae. If you've kept an aquarium, you've dealt with algae. If you eat sushi, you've eaten algae. Algae can be very small, algae can be very big. There are thousands and thousands of species of algae. These are gray whales for scale. I'm here to talk about single cell bacterial algae, but that is also algae. It is hundreds of meters long. And it's everywhere, and we don't think about it, but there's one in particular that I think is really interesting. Does anyone, also, by the way, feel free to shout and interrupt. I don't care. Does anyone else have a favorite algae? Diatoms. They've got a little silica shell. They're a very special algae. There should be a diatom talk. If anyone else has a favorite algae, please shout it out. Which one? Oh, hell yeah, Team Cyano. Cheers to cyanobacteria. The word of the night was cyanobacteria. You were all supposed to drink. Cheers to cyanos. This is actually a photo I took as an undergraduate researcher years ago of some cyanobacteria that I was studying. Let me see if I can. Okay, it's interesting because it is one of the few multicellular bacteria. Most bacteria are just single cells. They live out their entire lives by themselves. Everything that they do happens inside the cell. This is one of the few where they have to communicate with their fellow cells, and that's why we study them. That was what was interesting. There's other interesting things that'll come up later. But yeah, this is an actual photo I took it would have been the early 2000s, of the cyanobacteria I was studying. And more than no one cares, they are, interestingly, uniquely, they are bacteria. There are the 3 kingdoms of life: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryota. All other plants, all other algae are eukaryotes. Archaea, no one studies them. No one knows what the hell they're doing. And then there's bacteria that include the cyanobacteria. And it's really weird that they're in there, but they are an algae. One unique thing about them is, besides like I mentioned earlier about them being multicellular, is that they have these special cells called heterocysts. That's what we studied back in the day, and someone else still studies it. And inside that cell, it is an anaerobic environment, and it can take nitrogen out of the air and use that to build nucleotides and proteins. Whereas everything else in the world needs everything else needs to steal nitrogen from something else, probably that was fixed by cyanobacteria sometime in the last few billion years. So it's really weird that they have two cell types and that they do this weird thing. This is going to be very important. So for the quiz at the end, remember this: heterocysts, and they fix atmospheric nitrogen. And I want to give a shout out to the ACL interpreter for just absolutely knocking this out. I mean, that's every nerd I talk, but thank you. Yeah. They're the only bacteria that do oxygen-producing photosynthesis. Again, going to be very important, as the topic of this talk is Algae Apocalypse. This is going to be very relevant in a moment. This isn't an apocalypse, but like a very important thing that they did. Inside all photosynthetic plants, all green plants, are chloroplasts. Those are little organelles, little bodies inside the plant cell. Then that's what does photosynthesis. Those things are symbiotic algae that were symbiotic cyanobacteria that were absorbed hundreds of millions, billions of years ago into another cell. They have their own DNA inside them that is separate from the rest of the plant, and that is actually how plants do photosynthesis. So you're welcome. None of these things, your cute succulent, and all your other hobbies that may or may not still be, that are still legal in the state of Texas right now, are thanks to chloroplasts, which are actually endosymbiotic cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria form a fossil called a stromatolite. They're not necessarily the oldest living thing, but they are the oldest thing that left a fossil record. There are stromatolite fossils that are almost 3.5 billion years old. That's mind-blowing. That's worth it. So the oldest fossil that you can find are these forms that are called stromatolites, and they're formed by mats of cyanobacteria. Mud settles on them. The cyanobacteria make their way back up to the top. More mud settles on them, and some of that gets fossilized, becomes rocks, and eventually gets lovingly held by me at the Marfa Rock Shop, which is the story that I very much want someone to ask me at the end. Obviously. I wouldn't be in there all this time. And the amazing thing is there are extant stromatolites. There are still stromatolites being formed as we speak in Cuatro Ciénegas in Mexico, which are freshwater stromatolites in these like ponds where the cyanobacteria grow in mud and grow in mud and grow in mud. And this is Shark Bay in Australia. So they've been at it for like about as long as the Earth's been cool enough to do that. I don't know why I put this here. They invented, I know why I put this here. They invented photosynthesis. That's about to be very relevant because that's the first apocalypse that they do. As a result of doing oxygen producing photosynthesis, all of a sudden the Earth had oxygen, which it did not have before. For billions of years, they were out there in the primordial seas producing oxygen, and it was getting absorbed by free metallic iron in the water. Like in the absence of oxygen, the unoxidized iron is everywhere in the world, and now there are rings around the entire planet of rust caused by cyanobacteria producing oxygen, causing the iron to rust and fall out of solution. So there's just a ring of rust around the entire planet caused by cyanobacteria producing oxygen. Oh, and that also killed everything on Earth. everything on Earth at the time was anaerobic, and anaerobic things. The ana is very important in that name. They die in the presence of oxygen, and all of a sudden over the course of like 1 billion years, the planet had oxygen, and everything died. So like that's the first time. It killed about 90% of all life on Earth. Then they weren't done. They were eyeing the other 10%. I'm not a geologist. I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I'm a microbiologist who's not practicing anymore. Don't take this. Some of this, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could go on. But they're not done. Am I on the mark? I'm not on the mark. So this little guy is very important. This is a little fern called Azolla anabina. Why it's important will be will be relevant in a second. This is the Keeling curve, which I hope is still running on the top, I believe, of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, that is measuring atmospheric carbon dioxide. Basically since not the Industrial Revolution, but modern recordings, where it is parts per million. There you go. There you go. So this is your fault. Oh no, we found him.
I've been there to that site to see you do it.
Is it like a little thing that goes every now and then, or what does it do?
I drove up in my 5-liter Mustang.
I threw up on Mauna Kea, but that's an unrelated story. Tallest mountain on the earth. That's my claim to fame. Threw up on the tallest mountain on earth. So thanks to him, we've atmospheric carbon dioxide has been bubbling out of this Lone Star, has been climbing since the Industrial Revolution. And it's now well into the 400s, unfortunately. But they're related to that. This little floating fern called Azolla has a symbiotic relationship with a Anabina cyanobacteria. Anabina is a genus of cyanobacteria. And as I mentioned earlier, it is able to fix nitrogen out of the air. So if you are a plant that can grab carbon dioxide out of the air and you can grab nitrogen out of the air, you're rocking and rolling. You'd get most of your nutrients straight out of the air. Otherwise, all you really need is phosphorus and some other important minerals. Otherwise, you're grabbing everything out of the air, which is a huge advantage to other things that are trying to grow in otherwise nutrient-poor environments. And it's thanks to this relationship. This is separate from chloroplasts of Anabina living in the roots, grabbing nitrogen out of the air. So the Earth in the Eocene, and again, not a geologist, microbiologist that never left the lab, doesn't know anything about rocks. The atmospheric CO2 is too high right now. It's in the 400s. It used to be in the 4000s. The Earth was ripping hot. I saw it said 1,600% hotter than today. So basically Austin in the summer. And so Earth was ripping hot. The amount of CO2 in the air in the Eocene was much, 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 much higher than it was today. But because it was so hot, at the North Pole, there was a sea. Coincidentally, not because of that, but coincidentally, there was a sea surrounded by land at the North Pole. Into that sea, like the Great Salt Lake in Utah. Fresh water runs into it. It has nowhere to go. Evaporation goes out, makes it hypersaline. And because it's at the North Pole and because the Earth is ripping hot, it wasn't frozen at the time. And during the summers, the sun never sets on the North Pole. Exactly. Midnight sun all the time. And let's see. So for 800,000 years, Azolla was growing on this ocean in a very thin film of fresh water that's flowing in from these rivers, and it would just grow and grow and grow during Arctic summer. Then Arctic winter, the sun disappears, it dies, it falls into the hypersaline water below. does not decay and sequesters enough carbon to cause the first ice age that we are still living into this day. And this was 50 million years ago. The only reason life on Earth is possible, and 90% of things died. Because all of a sudden it got really cold. Like the Earth was ripping hot before that, and then it got really cold. There's coal. That's how they know. There is coal that just goes on for kilometers of just fossilized azolla. And azolla is still also extant. It's still out there kicking. Yeah. What's it up to next? You can't trust it. That is, that is the end of the apocalypses that algae has caused that we know of. This is me. I'm on email. I'm on Blue Sky. You can find me on Ham if I happen to be on the right, if I happen to be on at the time. And I would love to take your questions. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay. Hold on. Let's do this right. We ask the questions into the microphone.
Sorry, I'm bad. Stromatolite story, please.
Nicely done.
It's just a personal story. This is not educational. It's just funny, and that's a good part of Nerd Nite. So this is the rock store in Marfa. I went there for the first time in like the early 2000s, probably like 2008 or so, and went into the rock shop. Very small town, just run by a gruff rock guy, and ask him. I'm already an algae nerd at this point. Ask him if there's any stromatolites. He's like, no. Wait, yes. And he runs behind the store, moves a cactus over, digs this rock, this thing. It looks like a lump of cement out from behind a cactus. This is fucking huge for a stromatolite. Most of the time, when you get fossils that are like this big, and I'm like shocked. This is incredible. I'm so happy. I ask him how much it is. And he says $80. And at that time, I was fresh out of grad school. That might as well have been $8,000. And I said, I've got 60 on me. And he said, I can do 80. And so I did not go home with it. But I go to Marfa a lot. And I've made a little bit of a tradition. This is over the last 17 years. I go, like once, twice a year, go to that shop, ask the guy, hey, do you have any stromatolites? Never remembers. Always like, no. Wait, yes. And every single time the price has doubled. And the last time I went, he wanted like $500 for it. It's not, and I tell people, I don't want it. At this point, it is mine, wherever it goes. And either he doesn't know or he thinks like there's a weird demand for stromatolites. And so every time I'm in town, I go visit my stromatolite. And then this is when Amy and I went to Nerd Nite Big Bend, and we went down to visit my stromatolite. It missed me.
You want a trend of everyone going now?
Absolutely, always go ask him. And next time he's gonna want like 20 grand for it. He's gonna think, oh man, Austinites, they really want stromatolites. It's like the new brunch. What else you got? What else you got about algae or Nerd Nite or anything?
All right. I'm glad we got the story because I remember that. It was a good trip. So now we have perhaps an algae question or perhaps a Nerd Nite question. We'll see.
Algae question.
Okay, so my memory is horrible, so I can't remember the name of this one. But were there any other apocalypses caused by other algae?
I'll be a good scientist and say, I don't know. That's a great question. I would say look it up. Well, no. I left it out because it was too much of a bummer, but cyanobacteria is also the thing in Town Lake that kills dogs when they go swimming. It's not super poisonous to us. It's very poisonous to other animals. It's not the bacteria's fault. Every bacteria is producing it. It's caused when there's too much phosphorus and stagnancy, and it's like just poor management of the lake. So please don't blame the bacteria. But when I looked it up to see, like, is that cyanobacteria? I got this AI answer that was just garbage. Like it was like within itself, like contradictory. So I would say go look it up and see if you can find any other vicious algae, but don't use the AI summary. I'd have to think about it. I don't know of any other. I'd have to think, like, start with apocalypses and work backwards. I think they caused the meteor.
All right, so 2 for 2 on good questions. Where else should I go with this microphone at this point?
How are we on good answers?
2 for 2 on good answers, too.
Yeah.
All right, got a little question over here.
Hey, how much Zola would we have to cultivate to save us?
There are people doing that a lot. It took 800,000 years, and it had to fall into that hypersaline lake below. There are people exploring that. There are probably other better algae that also sequester carbon. Diatoms are actually a good one. I recently learned that 34 to 40% of biomass is diatoms. Did you know that, Mickey? Mickey told me that before the show. Yeah, no, I don't know. Again, I'm a molecular biologist. I barely left the bench. I know how to use my microscope. Like, things that are bigger than a couple cells confuse me. People, plants, babies, everything included. I don't know, but there are active projects to see if that can help ameliorate global warming.
3 for 3 on questions and answers.
Thank you.
Anybody else got anything, or are we good? I have a feeling Lewis is going to get cornered when people have a chance to tell him in person their favorite algae. Thank you. Thank you for the assist. Got one over here in one of the booths.
This is sort of a follow-up to that. If you were to put a dollar bet on what cyanobacteria would cause the next one, what would it be?
Oh, I had a really sad response to that. Like if all the algae dies and then we don't have oxygen anymore. But that's a bummer. I would put my money on cyanobacteria again. I don't know what they're up to. But it's whenever there's a big, for them it was anytime that there was a big global change that the rest of the planet couldn't cope with. So they're like uniquely made oxygen, uniquely fixed nitrogen. So if there's another algae that's out there doing something, like at a thermal vent, like, doing photosynthesis without the sun, and it's gonna, it's slowly building up, like, because the oxygen event was over the course of like 1 billion years. So there could be something out there emitting something that is changing the globe in a way that we don't perceive yet. My funny answer would be like a shortage of sushi wrap. Any others?
All right. I see a couple of people pointing at each other, which is always fun.
One of you is secret cyanobacteria. We're going to solve this mystery.
Well, I think that we've got a good sampling of questions for this portion of the evening, but if you have further questions or comments, this is your guy about algae and Nerd Nite and other things. So let's give him a round of applause.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun. Love you all.
Now.